In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Glory to Jesus Christ. In today's parable, we hear in a very succinct way a lot about creation, about the history that God and mankind have had together, about the coming of that Son who will set all things right, and about humankind's history and role and how God's plan has unfolded. We hear that in the beginning, the Lord planted a vineyard, or in the King James likes to use the word digged, which I'm not sure we'd find in the dictionaries now, but hey, it's there, and it challenges us. He put a vineyard in, and he dug a trench around it, and he put hedges around it, meaning that this beautiful land that he was cultivating, he was keeping it safe. He was keeping it in specific marked off areas, saying, this is the vineyard I'm creating, and I want it to stay here, and I want it to grow in this place. And of course, the master doesn't usually stay just to work in the fields. He hires some guys who might be looking for some work or who just want to serve their Lord. Makes more sense in medieval context, but we kind of understand what's going on here, right? Thank you. Somebody shook their head. I like you. All right. Yeah, you too. All right. And when the time had come for the harvest, the Lord sends down to the vineyard for his portion. You give me because, he says, this is my vineyard. I take the fruits. You guys take a little bit for your salary, and that's okay. That's how it works. That's even in the law in some places. But when he sent down his Son to collect the rewards, to collect the fruit, the men killed one, stoned one, threw another one out. What the parable is saying is when the Lord sent his prophets down, Prophets, to receive the fruits of his vineyard, the people he had loaned the vineyard to, he had asked to watch over it for a little while, decided, if we kill these guys, we get to keep the vineyard for ourselves. We get to keep all of the nice fruits and all of the rewards, all of the blessings for ourselves, and we don't have to share them. Now, for those of us who have kids, that's called being selfish, and, they don't do very well in the playroom when they're trying to take their own toys, right? So in the end, the master says, I will send my Son. I will send the one I love more, I love the most, and he will go down, and surely they will respect him. So they go down there, or he goes down there, to the vineyard, and what happens? They kill him too. They cast him out of the vineyard, and they kill him outside of the vineyard. Remember, there's a hedge, and there's a ditch, and there's all these protections. You're not supposed to leave the vineyard. It's nice and safe. This is where the Lord has put all of those protections for his vine workers, his husbandmen, as it says in the King James text. And they kill the Son, and they say, finally, we will keep this vineyard all for ourselves. Now we see a story of all of creation in this parable. The men who come first, who try to just collect their master's just rewards, his fruit that belongs to him, they're the prophets, like I said before. And finally, when he's exhausted sending all of his prophets, he sent some, and then he sent more than before, and they just kept coming and coming. Finally, he said, that's it. They're not getting another chance. Those who work in my vineyard now will have to face the end of their days. So he sends his Son. And that Son, of course, being Jesus Christ. He comes down to the vineyard, this world we've been given, this creation that he created and has just been loaned to us for a little while. He has sent his Son here. And when that Son came to his own city, to Jerusalem, what did the people of this Lord's vineyard, this Lord's creation do? Right. We threw him out of his own city. We cast him outside the walls, just as in the parable, the Son is set outside of the vineyard to be killed. We couldn't even crucify Christ in his own city. We threw him outside. We crucified him on a hill overlooking the temple. Well, I guess the hill wasn't overlooking the temple. It has to be shorter, doesn't it? But outside of. Now, we can draw a lot from this story. We can look at salvation history, that march of prophets culminating in the Messiah and the redemption of the vineyard. We can look at it in terms of humankind. How do we react knowing that the Lord has given us a great gift? I think that's what I'd like to do today. Having just come back from vacation, being nice and fresh-faced and not retired. What's the word I'm looking for? Rested. I would like to retire. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm only about halfway there. All right, no smirking. We've driven through all of upstate New York. We've been through quite a bit of Ontario, and we've seen beauty in this world. And we've been in large cities where we've seen trash and junk laying in the curbs. And we've been in, we've driven to restaurants where it's nice out front and you go out back and there's all sorts of boxes and trash and junk thrown there waiting to fester and make a mess. What we saw on our vacation and what we see every day driving around the towns where we live in or the offices that we work in or whatever is that sometimes we do a good job of taking care of the vineyard the Lord has loaned to us, and other times, not so good a job. Sometimes we abuse it. We've been given this creation not to own, not to possess, but to have for just a little while. The average age of a person is somewhere in the 80s now. The oldest person in the world is only like 114 years old. So it doesn't belong to them. And we, being God's creatures, are part of that creation. In the beginning, always going back to Genesis, we always can. God said, "You, my beloved children, will be the stewards of creation. Go, cultivate it, till it, take care of it, make it prosperous, but make it better than it was when you were first given it." That's something we always say to our kids, right? Leave the place looking nicer than when you first got here. Right? Especially in your toy rooms, right, guys? Yeah, right. But that's our jobs as Christians, as creatures, as those who know what God has called us to do, is to look at this creation, look at the world that He has given us and say, how can I make this better? How can I make it fruitful so that it is a visible reminder to everybody of the blessings that the Creator has put down on this earth? I think this is very fortuitous or wonderful confluence of ideas in this week that on September 1st we celebrate the day for the prayer of creation. September 1st is also the church New Year. We begin the new year, and I will start saying that next week. Happy New Year. I won't say it yet. We will begin the new year by praying for this world that the Lord has given to us. How can we become better stewards of the creation that we've been given? How can I learn not to exploit what He has given to us, or to me? It's quite a challenge in our world, especially, those of us in North America. That's not fair. I've never been outside of it. But we have everything that we want. We drive cars, and every time you drive a car, and not anybody here has a fully electric car, I don't believe, and I don't even know if they're non-pollutant. But every time we step out of our houses, every time we do anything, cooking, painting, we're doing a little bit of damage to creation, aren't we? When we were kids, you guys younger than maybe 30 never saw this, but there would be like these huge plumes of exhaust coming out of the backs of cars, which we always thought was kind of cool. When we were kids, as he would pass, we'd try to run behind it to get through it. Not realizing, we were running for carcinogens for fun. It was awesome. Okay? We're working a little bit better to clean up the world. We're working to make it that image of heaven here in creation as the Lord has asked us to do. Some have tried to profit from it. How many times have you been guilted into buying yogurt because it says, if you buy this yogurt, we'll make a nickel donation to some cause? Well, if it was about actually making a donation, if it was actually about caring about the cause, why didn't they just give the money in the first place? Without telling you, hey everybody, brand X gave $1 million to this research company. Well, why don't you just do it and solve the disease in the first place? To be stewards of creation is to just do it because the Lord has asked us and has commanded us to treat it well, not to profit from it. We will receive immense bounty from the world, from the crops as they grow up. We went out berry picking yesterday. There weren't many berries left, but we did get some fruits and things like that. Went over to a place over in Trumansburg. And from one little, I was thinking about this as we're walking past, one little kernel of corn, which if you left it on your plate at the end of a meal, you'd go, oh, that's one kernel of corn, I'm not going back for it, right? But from that whole ear, you could plant, I don't know what, a 20 by 20 plot of corn, and it multiplies. This is what the Lord has created the world to do, to multiply its blessings, to give us every good thing. And yet how often do we abuse it for our own means? How often do we look at the world and say, this serves me, I don't serve it? In this week, that's going to be the challenge. To find our proper place within creation. Not as the masters and the kings and those who deserve our land in this world. He's doing good. But to say, how do I take care of what the Lord has given me so that at the end of my life I can say, this is the little plot of ground you've given me. These are, for example, the people I've fed. This is the ground you've given me, and this is the chapel I have built on my own property to your honor. This is the little plot of ground you've given me, and this is the place where I raised my children, and they learned to love the Lord. That's what we're called to do with this world. Not to make a buck off of it. Not to gather more and more and more so that you can see how powerful I am. Did you guys ever hear of the year of Jubilee back in the Old Testament? All right. Anybody ever heard about it? Somebody's got to respond. Yeah, thank you. All right. Every 50 years, all the land that you bought would just be returned. It would go back to square one. We would just start over so that nobody could collect too much and become so important because they collected all the toys and weren't going to give them out. Because in the end, it's all the Lord's, isn't it? It's our job. It's our duty. And it can be our joy to say, this is the world He has given us. How now do I cultivate it so that it becomes holy, so that it is dedicated to Him? On September 1st, we will join the Orthodox Church worldwide in the day of prayer for creation. We will set aright our agendas for the actual physical, material world we see, and see it not as something that serves me, but as something that I can take care of. I can pour my love into this world so that the Lord's love can be shown to everybody else who moves around in that world. On September 1st, on that first day of the church new year, we dedicate ourselves to the service of God, as we do every day, and we dedicate the little plots of ground we have been given here on this world, not to say, I wish I had more, but to be thankful for whatever little or great bit we've been given, and know that it all must be cultivated, along with our own hearts, to the glory of God. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, glory to Jesus Christ.